let's continue our interview series where we talk to beat writers around the state with Carlos Silva of the Lubbock Avalanche-Journal. Carlos, how you doing, buddy?
Finding you all. Appreciate you having me on the live show.
Yeah, for sure, man. This is, of course, when we decided to do Texas Tech, we're like, look, there's one guy that I had in mind for this, and of course,
it's Don Williams.
We couldn't get Don Williams.
He didn't call us back.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no, how you doing over there, buddy? How's Lubbock?
Doing fine, man. Just getting used to the heat, as I'm sure the rest of Texas is. But the windy days are kind of nice. It's just it feels like an oven on some of those windy days. So,
I bet.
Just getting used to the old summer days.
Yeah. First question I kind of want to go with, Joey McGuire, obviously hired as Texas head coach, hit the ground running when it came to recruiting. I believe they're still sitting at technically number 2 in 247's rankings. So obviously there's still a whole season to play, and those rankings will kind of shake out once teams like Bama and things get going. But I think it says something how quickly he's been to ingratiate himself into that recruiting market around the state. I think it was something that people looked at when they hired Joey McGuire, saying this is something that could be possible. What have you seen as what he's kind of selling for Texas Tech? Because this is a team that, struggled to get to a bowl, fired their coach even though they got to a bowl, right? And it was kind of a weird situation for the past couple of years. What's he done to kind of sell this program and what it could be heading into the fall?
Well, I think that the most important thing, and you guys kind of touched on it on the cover piece, it's just that not only do you have Texas Tech coming into your high school, but a lot of coaches, especially in the area in Lubbock, have talked about you also have Joey McGuire, the man, coming in. And I think that's really what he's selling, is the brand, as he likes to call it, is he wants this West Texas tough type of team. And it started with Sonny Cumbie last year, getting that oil rig going onto the sideline. So he's really built on that. And then not only when you have that, but when you get talented players and, that's what they're trying to do right now, it's going to turn into something that could be special. And I think in the general sense, that's what he's selling, is if you're able to play hard and you develop yourself over the course of your time here at Texas Tech. And not only that, but then the transfer portal is also helping things a little bit when you look at, you don't necessarily have to wait those typical 2 to 3 years to develop a guy on the football on the football team. You can get a guy that's already, been developed or been in a weight room at a Power 5 program, or a Georgia or a Alabama, for instance, when you have a Chadarius Townsend here at Texas Tech. And I think that's really what he's doing, is he figured out what he needed to kind of work on, as you guys kind of saw with the recruiting rankings and just kind of looking at what they've been recruiting. Defensive line, offensive line were certainly some big things. Recently, they just added another defensive back, so the secondary was certainly something that they were looking to fill in. But I think just overall, just selling himself and the program, and just that there's a new turn here. And the fact that they won a bowl game last year certainly helps as well.
My question's a quarterback-related question. I think one of the biggest tricks he pulled so far, and not only is this recruiting class and the transfers he's brought in, but keeping all 3 of those quarterbacks on campus. If I made you put your June paycheck on the line, who are you picking to take the first snap for Texas Tech in this season? And would that still be the same choice if I asked you who do you think takes the most snaps at quarterback for Texas Tech this season?
I think it might be a different answer in terms of snaps, but in terms of who's starting, I would be shocked if it's not Tyler Shuck. He obviously transferred here to get playing time, didn't pan out the way he wanted to last year. If he would have stayed healthy, depending on who you were reading or the draft grades you were looking at, he could have been a first-round pick last year with the way he was throwing and the way that people are looking at him and his prototypical, quarterback, 6'5", 225 frame. But that didn't work out, so he's looking to run it back. And the one good thing about Joey McGuire that kind of worked out last year, when you saw Henry Columbia at the time, when he was kind of, showing his dual threat athletic ability, you've got that with the Donovan Smith, and a Barron Morton can be a nice change of pace type guy. But the one thing that you have to like about Joey McGuire, and again, it just goes back to the person that he is. I'm sure that there are some other conversations that we're not, privy to, but you have a lot of opportunity at Texas Tech, and Tyler Shuck is certainly going to be the first one to take a crack at it, just based on his experience, the ability to learn the playbook so quickly, the fact that he's been able to focus on football because of the way he's done his academics and being able to get a master's degree, so he's able to focus more on football. But then you look at Donovan Smith. He's a proven quarterback that was the offensive MVP last year at the Liberty Bowl, so you certainly have a pretty good backup quarterback in that sense. And then another reserve in Baron Morton, who's one of your top-rated quarterbacks. They're all Red Raiders, as Joey McGuire's like to say, and I think at least for right now, as you guys said, we'll see how things pan out during the season, but right now everything's at least golden in terms of what Joey McGuire's been able to do once he did get the job last year.
I find the prospects of the 2022 Texas Tech offense to be really fascinating. Like, we think of Texas Tech as this pass-happy team. Zach Kittley, as his last two stops, throws the ball all around. But then you look at the roster, and I think I could argue that the running back room is the strength of that offense. The offensive line gets 5 new transfers. At least 2 or 3 of those guys are going to start and really retool that group. Where do you think that this offense falls in terms of, like, run-pass dynamic? Do we see it kind of be more of like what we've seen from Kittley the last few years? Or like you mentioned, McGuire kind of wanted to have that West Texas tough team. Do we kind of see a little bit more run from him than maybe we've seen, at Western Kentucky or Houston Baptist?
I hate to be this guy, but I think it all depends on the game plan and the team that they're playing. But I certainly do feel like there's going to be a lot more of a emphasis to run the ball, to milk the clock, especially at the end of games, or if you're trying to, give your defense a rest after a really long offensive drive previously when they're, going up against an offense that could be, grinded out type team. But I do agree with you guys. You look at SaRodorick Thompson, Taj Brooks, Cameron Valdez. They've got a lot of talent there, but they certainly have a lot of talent at the wide receiver position. It's just it's one of those unproven rooms. You look at the players that aren't there anymore. Eric Ezukanma, the main one, who's now with the Miami Dolphins. And after that, you look at, you got Miles Price, you got Jerron Bradley, who showed some sparks during the Liberty Bowl game against Mississippi State. And then, J.J. Sparkman, just a lot of unproven guys. But the one thing that Joey McGuire said during the spring is there's a lot of a chance to prove yourself. And certainly Jerron Bradley has been that guy that's really done that during the spring. It's Loic Fungi and some other guys have been, healing their injuries, pardon me.
Yeah, Miles Price may catch over 100 balls. Like, when I went there for the magazine stuff, I said the name Zach Kittley. I didn't even finish it, and he was smiling. So I know the wide receivers are really excited to play in that new offense. To move over to the defensive side of the ball, how realistic is it to expect Tim DeRuyter to make a kind of a big change with this group in year one, or is this kind of more of a long-term project than maybe the offense is?
I certainly think it's a long-term project just in terms of getting the type of players you want to get. But in terms of what they want to do, you look at what they do on the Twitter machine, the hashtag Take3. They're looking to get 3 takeaways during a game. And according to Joey McGuire, when he was talking about it after the spring game, if you are +3 in turnovers in a game, you're going to win 93% of your games. Now, again, there's a lot of stats that happen, but certainly when you look at something like that, that just goes to show the type of emphasis that Joey McGuire wants to do, which is something Keith Patterson, the previous defensive coordinator, was trying to do. The more turnovers you get, the more chances your, in theory, prolific offense, has a chance to score. And unfortunately, last year, just the offense wasn't able to kind of get going. And if you're able to get it going this year, things could change and there could be some upsets. And I think that's what really has fans really kind of, a little bit excited for this team, as they saw what could have been when they did beat Mississippi State in the Liberty Bowl. But again, you just have to continue that momentum. And certainly if they're able to do that on the defensive end by getting some of these bigger defensive linemen that can plug up holes, that can help the linebackers, move freely, get those tackles, and you're able to get some of these defensive backs that are a little bit more physical, at the point of attack, I think that's certainly going to be a huge positive result for the Texas Tech Red Raiders if they're able to, turn things around in terms of getting some turnovers on the defensive end.
Yeah, it feels like McGuire and Texas Tech are in this obvious honeymoon stage. He's on the Dave Campbell's cover. He's only getting good publicity. Everybody seems to love him. The resources are going up. People are donating money. How long does that last, right? Is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? How long? I know Texas Tech has kind of gone through a couple coaches lately. One of them, Cliff Kingsbury being kind of their own guy. Matt Wells never really seemed to really ingratiate himself with the fan base. How long does this kind of feel good stage last? Does he need to win right away, or is there an understanding that, this may take a little bit longer than just, one season?
I mean, I may be in the minority here, but I think the fact that you've got the transfer portal helps you be successful a lot quicker than you would normally think to have those 3 to 5 year, recruiting plans. Now, again, he signed a long-term deal, so I think just the administration feels like they're going to give him some time to get things straightened out. And I think just looking at the schedule, which I'm sure you all have, kind of talked about for a little bit, but it's a pretty difficult schedule when you look at who they got to play at North Carolina State, Murray State. You've got to, host Houston. It's going to be a very difficult schedule, especially in the Big 12 Conference. And I think there's a lot of realistic fans now where they kind of realize, okay, you know what, we've got the guy that we wanted, which again goes back to your question in terms of Matt Wells not being the guy that they wanted initially when it was reported Dana Holgorsen wasn't talked to during his hiring process. So the fact that the fans got who they wanted in Joey McGuire, I think that gives them that extra year or two, which I would say he's got at least 2 to 3 years here at Texas Tech, especially, again, like I said, with that transfer portal, you're able to find and, plug in some successful players or some key pieces that you feel could be the thing that could take you to that next step or that next level, if you will, for the offense or the defense. And I think if you get those 2 to 3 years, and if you're able to get a couple wins or even get a winning record or a bowl win, who knows what could happen on the recruiting trails, especially like you guys just alluded to at the start of this. It's just all that momentum's huge. It's just can you continue that? Because if you are, the team could be really, really good down in the future when you kind of look at what they've been able to do on the recruiting rounds.
And then lastly for me, with this new look Big 12, Texas and Oklahoma leaving the conference, is there kind of like this renewed feeling of like this conference is wide open and it's up for the grabs for us to go take? Can you sense that around the program? Because it feels like I can sense that around the state at these Big 12 programs that are staying behind.
Well, I think you certainly look at that. You look at Oklahoma State, and heck, even if you look at Houston and some of the incoming teams, a UCF or a BYU, that they all feel like who's going to be the two that are going to be the top tier teams once this new Big 12 does come to fruition. And I think Texas Tech is certainly in a position to do that. You guys already talked about all the donations that have been happening, obviously all the new athletic facilities that are being planned to, help out football. Baseball just started there. So I think there's a lot of positive momentum in that sense. And I think, again, it goes without saying, but the wins are going to help a lot. Not the losses, so to speak, but if you get your winning going and the football team starts going, you can see that you can just surmise that this athletic program is going to be very, very good in the future.
Alrighty. Appreciate your time, Carlos, man. We'll be paying attention to what you and Don are doing over there in Lubbock because obviously Joey McGuire is one of the biggest hires in the state, and Texas Tech is kind of one of the biggest storylines we've kept our eye on, obviously, with the magazine and all. So we appreciate your time, man.
No, appreciate you all, and good luck on the lot.
Thank you very much. That was Carlos Silva. You can follow him at SCM Silva Jr. on Twitter. Like I said, there's not many more people more plugged in than he and Don Williams over there in Lubbock.
Sure.